Hello and welcome to the next segment of the Websites for Growth series. I'm Tim O'Brien with the Nebraska Department of Economic Development, and I have the pleasure of having Caleb Pollard from the Valley County Economic Development Organization with me to talk about the next segment, content and management of your website. And so we're going to ask a few questions and have a great discussion about how you manage your content and get cool stuff to keep people coming back and growing your community.
Thanks, Tim. It's a pleasure to be here.
We talked a little bit, Caleb, in the last segment about the importance of being able to manage the site yourself and keep it updated and fresh. So can you touch on about how you go about that process and what your time commitment is involved with that?
Absolutely, Tim. Content to me is, not only is it king, along with the design aspect of it, but it's also really important to have fresh content that is deriving fresh traffic for us. So one of the things that I made very clear in our design phase of the website was that it was built on a content management system, or CMS. And our CMS really was the tool, the open-end open source tool to allow us to make first-party changes to the website to do live blogging, for example, at a community event in a time frame in which was acceptable to us. I didn't want a gatekeeper that I had to send all of my content through, even if that was the developer, because I wanted to be able to have a website that was dynamic and that changed, and that's the big thing, is it changes over time as time changes and changes aspects of your community.
Oh, that's great. How do you go about getting different segments? Do you partner with the community? Do they just know to send things to you? Are you getting pictures frequently and videos? What's the process of aggregating that sort of content community-wide?
It's I would say a multi-layered process. One is that we still want to have a very professional appeal and a website that looks not only slick but has bells and whistles that keep people coming back, return customers as I like to call them. So we do employ some sophistication in going out and obtaining professional services like for photography to tell a story. For example, if you go to ordnebraska.com, one of the things that you'll see there is what we call the Loup Valley Culinary Experience. And I wanted to give kind of a snippet of what it was like for the culinary influences in the Loup Valley, basically between Ord and Burwell, for an individual that would be interested in coming to our community. So we were able to get a professional photographer to come out and then document with photojournalism, document some of those assets. But I think also the other side of it is social media today places huge demands on having not only transparent media tools, but also having interactive tools in which people can participate with. So we created, and it wasn't something that was new in the community, but we did it entirely with digital media last year, was a photo and video contest. And we basically paid the community in a contest-based situation to go out and obtain specific photos and graphical representation of the assets and the amenities in our community on a monthly basis over the course of the summer. So it was a mixed approach, and it helped us generate huge amounts of traffic because the community was, especially in the competitive nature of it, coming back on a weekly basis and voting on their best photos, et cetera, et cetera. And we were really pleased with the result.
Oh, that's great. How much have you seen traffic increase with the different things that you've been doing? And where would you say your readership or your followers come from? Are they internal? Are you seeing a lot of external people? Or have you had some successes because of what you've done recently?
I think that's a great question. One of the first things that I think, I wanted to make clear with the new website and the content management system is that we had fresh content to drive fresh traffic. Mm-hmm. And what that did for us was pretty astronomical. We were able to increase traffic to our website by about 30 to 40%. And in 1 month, in the month of May, we had over 100,000 hits for Ord Nebraska. Now, to me, that tells me, one, we're generating huge amounts of traffic, but when you actually looked at the visitor sessions and the time that they were spending way more time than they had prior to on our website looking for information that was valuable to their very specific need. And that is what told me that we had content that was relevant, that was fresh, and was at least engaging, and we were able to keep those people coming back month in and month out. So we really wanted to focus on that aspect, is that content was fresh. But I think also what is really important too to keep in mind is that when you put out content, certain content is really interesting to see for specific audiences. Some of the content we put out there is very much for internal audiences, and we do have an internal audience in which we talk to. But then on the other hand, we understand very specifically is that the website is our primary communication tool to new residents, and so we had to put content that was relevant to them to get them interested and intrigued in the area.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds great. On our website, websitesforgrowth.com, we created sort of an asset inventory, and it sounds like you really follow that fairly closely and make sure that you keep a lot of those sections updated. Can you just touch on what are the top sections that you update a lot? Is it business news? Is it publicity? Or it seems more of a blog format of just keeping things fresh is really what you're telling us, right?
Absolutely. The blog is our major piece to telling that story in a much thorough and investigative manner. But also we're on Twitter, and we have Twitter updates that talk about things that are going on. But people are really interested in the activities and the events and the attractions, but then also the prominent news of the area. We really repackage what the local news is telling to alumni, for example, and we do it through Facebook, and we get a lot of repeat customers coming through Facebook telling us what they want, what they don't want in terms of content. And so we really look at it as the activities and the events, and then all that other data that's there, the ambient data that makes people understand what's available in the community from a resource standpoint gets consumed when they're looking at the exciting stuff. So we focus mostly on the activities, the events, and then I also use the blog as a way to disseminate important national or local or regional information that is usable to the end user within the community.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. And just a last thing to touch on in our content and management section here, it sounds like there's a fairly good commitment. You've really made this a priority in terms of economic development. And can you touch on about how much time you spend and really the fruits of your labor and
Absolutely.
what that's look like?
Absolutely. It's a top priority, and I spend at least 30 minutes to an hour a day on these sorts of things every day, because that's where traffic is. That's where eyeballs are, and that's how we derive a conversation with what's going on in our community.
Oh, that's great, Caleb, and you've got to be global, and
Absolutely.
your website helps create that, and
Absolutely.
a lot of research that we've done and you've done shows that. And
Absolutely.
So, excellent. Well, Caleb, this has been a pleasure talking about the content and management
Thanks,
of
Tim.
this next segment. We will be following up with social media and marketing, which should be a lively and fun section by both of us. Very important for your website, so please check that out at websitesforgrowth.com and stay tuned to the next segment.